So first, I want everybody to introduce themselves, where they're from, what they do, all that sort of fun stuff, and who your favorite Avatar character is.
Oh, we already do that?
Yeah.
Starting off with the hard questions.
Already done.
Okay, alright. Well, hello everybody. My name is Benjamin Tights. I am a registered psychological associate here in California, a psychology doctoral candidate. I will be graduating next year. Thank you. It took me long enough. I feel like I went through like 5 lifetimes. So, what was that, like Roku, Kyoshi, whatever. So I work in clinical and forensic psychology, and I am the co-host of 2 mental health related podcasts, one of which she will talk about because she's my co-host, and the other one is called My Hero Therapy, where I talk about the mental health and psychology of the My Hero Academia anime, and how we can be heroes IRL. And I think my favorite character from Avatar: Last Airbender / Legend of Korra, if it's not Appa, because he is the best, then I actually really appreciate Boomy, both Boomies, like both of them, because they just unapologetically who they are.
Yeah.
And like I just really admire that. Like sometimes I want to be more like that. So, and you know, especially Boomy the second, he doesn't let anybody tell him otherwise. Like you're not a bender, you can't do shit. I was the like second in command of the freaking United Republic fleet. Back off. So yeah, so he's cool.
Well, you definitely look like a mad genius. So.
My name is Elizabeth, and I created Psychology for Geeks. We are in the process of registering it as a nonprofit, so we can provide geeky activities and mental health for rural communities here in California. I hate this question. Like you can't just pick one because like all the little animals are like so cute. So like okay, so let's just all agree that all the animals are like cute, like the little like dog turtles.
The turtles.
So like and Alpha obviously and animal.
And the lion turtle. Lion turtles.
Yeah. I don't know. It will have to be like in between like Zuko and Uncle Iroh, but I'm wearing Uncle Iroh today, so I'll go with that.
Hey, I like Uncle Iroh.
Uncle Iroh, especially as a therapist.
Yeah. He's like everyone's therapist.
Yeah.
I love him.
Just drink some tea, it'll all be better.
I mean, he's right.
Fix your body posture and everything. You'll breathe easy.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Isaac Tights, and as you'll notice by the shared beard resemblance, I'm the older brother of Ben over here, and I am the head psychologist and president of All Mind Health. It's a clinical psychological corporation here in California. We do sessions in person as well as via telehealth for kids, adults, teens, as well as veterans and service members, so basically just kind of geeks of all ages. And though I'm dressed up as everyone's favorite character, my favorite character I would probably have to say would be Iroh as well. Though Zuko comes very close because of how human he gets and how well he absorbs Iroh's hot leaf juice.
It's just so relatable.
Hot leaf juice. And I am Charlene McPherson. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, been in the field for 15 years, licensed in Maryland. I am the owner, operator, lead therapist, whatever you want to call me. Just call me. Of Nerd Adventure Therapy 20, which abbreviates to Nat 20. Yeah. Right? And I run D&D therapeutic groups right now for adults. So, and by adults, I mean age like 30 plus. I'm not talking about kids that are still in college. I'm talking about like adults, age 30 plus. Those are most of my clients. I also do a podcast with Benjamin here called Mental Health Quest, where we talk about diagnoses, we talk about treatments, we talk about how to interview your therapist, because you should be doing that the first time you meet your therapist. And also that you should be, by the way, I'm just going to say it right here, you should also be interviewing 3 therapists at one time, if you can, to find a good fit for you. So we go over information like that, we bring on experts in the field, and talk about all that type of fun stuff. We do want questions from our audience, so if you guys do start following it and have any questions, please ask us. Nobody's asked a question yet.
We had
We did
couple
just start.
emails, but they were not about bottom part because it was more about the nerdy stuff. So,
Yeah.
which is fine. I became really good friends with the guy anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, we have a few questions. Oh, my favorite character, sorry,
Yeah.
is, it's gonna be lame, but it's Korra. No, just because like how fiery she was as a kid, and then going through the growth that she went through, the trauma she went through, like all, and just kind of the realization and trying to balance everything. I just love that story. It's just so good. It's such a good story. So, Korra's my favorite. All right. So, the first question I had for you all. Yes, I'm from Maryland. It's technically in the South. It's a border state. A recurring theme in both Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra is the complexity of the villains. They're not just simply evil, but have their own justifications for their actions. What are your thoughts on this? Do you believe that villains can ever be justified in their pursuit of power?
So I will start off with this. So as I mentioned, I work in forensic psychology, and up until recently I was working with people on parole who have committed not so fun things, not really light crimes. They were not good. And one thing that I've learned while working with them is crime doesn't happen out of like the ether. And there's no such thing in the real world as just pure evil. There's so much more to it. Yes, people do horrible things, and yes, they have no remorse for it, and that's what we call evil. But they weren't just happening that way out of the blue. And what we see with a lot of the villains in Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra is they became criminals. They became villains due to their experiences and the way that their environment shaped them. In particular, I'm going to focus on like Ozai, who was the main villain from Last Airbender. Like everybody's like, oh, he's just a pure evil guy. He's just a totalitarian dictator, but he was raised that way. His father and his grandfather were telling him that's what you have to be. He had no other way of looking at things, and so it really begs the question, as Katara and Aang did. Question is, how does someone who was such an innocent baby turn into this quote unquote monster? And so what I really try to look at in my work and when I'm looking at these villains on screen is what led them down this path, what environmental factors influenced their choices, and how do they justify their actions. Ozai's justification is, I'm gonna bring peace to the world through under my rule. Because look, the Fire Nation is prosperous. We have all this technology, so surely everyone else will want to do the same. Colonialism and all that fun stuff. And then we have in Legend of Korra, Unalaq. He's like, well, no, we want the spirits to be free. So I'm justified to do this because I don't agree with what the previous avatars. I'm going to make it different. They all have fairly valid, understandable reasons. I'm not justifying them, I'm not excusing them, I'm not condoning them. I'm just explaining them. And it's really important that we understand that these villains are not two-dimensional. They are so complex. And so I really like how they portray the villains in every season, every series. I really can't wait how they do it in the new.
And Zuko was the one to break it.
Absolutely. Solving problems. hint it's not. But, you know, he was able to get a different perspective due to his exile. If Ozai had not exiled him, then I'm pretty, you know, confident that Zuko would not have had these changes of heart that he did. Because he would not have been exposed to it.
I mean, it might have taken him longer.
Might have been longer, but it would have been very much more difficult for Iroh's influence to penetrate because he would have still been surrounded by Ozai and all that stuff.
Do you think that age has something to do with that justification in every superpower?
It is interesting because of the different villains, obviously like Azula is the youngest, I think she's like 14, and she clearly justifies her actions, but again she's raised in that system. And then we have Kuvira, who's I think the next youngest, she's like in her 20s. And it's really interesting that she became a race because she did not grow up in that system. She grew up in a very like, you know, utopian society, but she still saw corruption in the world, and you know, she went to the extreme. Oh well, there's too much, you know, everybody doing everything that they want, and it's chaos, so I'm going to create order. And it's not a bad thing to want order out of chaos, it's just the way she went about it. I mean, you hear these jokes about Thanos also like, oh, you know, I understand why he wanted to get rid of it. It's just the way he did it was not so good. So I think age does have a thing to do because the more you sit with those thoughts and beliefs without being challenged, the more entrenched you're going to be in them, and the harder it'll be to get out of it. But it is still possible to get out of it.
Right.
Kuvira did. Zahir kind of did. I like to believe that his time in... That's my belief, at least. That's my headcanon. Maybe I'll write a fanfic about it.
The older he gets.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what he said.
So Uncle Iroh, he was considered like the grand, what was he? The dragon of the
Dragon of the West.
Dragon of the West. So he was also equally as evil as like Ozai and all of them. But once he lost his son, he realized like, oh, I need to change. I need to like do things differently, right?
When external
But
factors...
see, I think the one thing that I wanted to bring up is that even though he changed and he did so much good, it doesn't really cancel out the bad that he did before, right? It doesn't justify all the horrible things they did just because they had like a traumatic childhood or was like a generational thing. It like no, they're still guilty of doing that horrible thing to people. Yeah.
He had mentioned that when the final battle between the Avatar and Ozai was coming up, they were asking him, "Well, can you fight him?" He said, "Yeah, I could, but my hands are not clean. And if I was to defeat him, and I don't even know if I could, this would still appear as just a violent overturn after violent overturn. That violence does not resolve violence." And so he understood well enough that because of the actions he had in his past, that he was humble enough to accept that as the fate of things. He acknowledged that it was necessary for, in order to end the cycle of anger, of violence, of hatred, there needed to be some form of a genuinely pacifistic approach. The Avatar needed to come to fulfill his duty. In a similar manner, the public would not have accepted that too, whether it's spiritual, whether it's just the court of public opinion. But anyway.
No, because that reminded me too of just because Uncle Iroh did something bad in the past and then he's doing good now, he is holding himself accountable, but in a sort of very balanced way because he's still seeing the value in himself and he's still like going and chasing his own dreams. He's not just sort of like some hermit in the middle of nowhere being like, oh, well, I can't be part of society anymore because of all the bad things and this is the way that I'm gonna, say sorry to all these people. Like he's still trying.
He's still trying to repair.
Yeah. Like in his own way.
And this is something, when I was working with the people in Pro, how do we make repair in the world after we've done horrible things? Because not everyone will forgive us. And we can't expect them to. But we can do good in the world still, even though we've done bad. Iroh, he helped to perpetuate the violence against Earth Kingdom. And then he opened a tea shop, the Jasmine Dragon. I see the guy wearing the shirt there. He brought good feelings and tea to the Earth Kingdom and helped to kind of build a new image of himself.
But he also saved the Earth Kingdom.
He also saved it.
Yeah.
That's a minor. The
I had another White Lotus.
team
Yeah,
is the real hero.
the team. The good
The hot
The hot leaf juice.
Yeah.
Always is the good.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Where do you think that line is between repent and change? Because I think, especially like how you're saying, taking accountability is important, but where's that kind of line between, okay, he's paid for his sins versus...
I was gonna say something like that. It is the existential, there is no answer. I think everybody's gonna come up with their own answer of when are you finally responsible for your own behaviors? Once they've been challenged, once you know that they're a problem, to me, that's when you're responsible for it, but sometimes that never happens for people. And so, not that it excuses their behaviors or makes it any better or anything like that, but it's that's why we need to have community, that's why we need to have, panels, that's why we need to have cons, that's why we need to interact with people, because when we're exposed to different beliefs, then it challenges, what's going on with us. And I think that's the question is, when you get challenged and you notice it, I think that's where you become responsible.
I'm reminded a lot actually of the three-part apology. Is anyone here familiar with this concept of the three-part apology? Great, so I can teach it to you. So this is basically, Iro is living this approach. And in essence, when you notice you've made a mistake, you've hurt somebody, you will tell them, hey, I did this action that hurt you. I'm sorry that I did that action. And I'm going to make a commitment, or I'm going to do X or Y or Z to not do it again, to do something different.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we'll hear, oh, I'm sorry, your feelings got hurt by the thing that I did. Does that sound helpful? No. That sounds like something like Azula might have said. Don't want to do that. But Iroh is embodying this three-part apology. He's genuinely acknowledged after his son had passed away what harm he was causing not only to himself but to the world. And he feels great sorrow. You are already humming the song in your brains right now, and I apologize for that already. I'm going to commit to move on from this topic. So Iroh continues, and all of his interactions through the Earth Kingdom are in an effort to heal what is going on. He observes how the different benders are engaging with their elements, with their people. He's teaching that to Zuko. He is interacting with everyone he sees in this kind of calm and beneficial manner. Even when he is breaking out of, earth shackles, none of the earthbenders are, decimated. He gets out just as much as he needs to. Partially because he's able to maintain a kind of a calm demeanor, because he doesn't need to be this aggressive version he used to be. So by being this calmer version of himself, he actually can achieve his goals a lot easier. So when we do find ourselves in repentance, that is exactly the point to start to engage in that new approach. You've noticed it, it's time to act different.
Yeah.
But I want to give the very therapist answer. It depends. Right? It depends on the person, because your view of when you reach that balance or that line may be different than mine, may be different from someone else. So that's why in therapy it's important to get somebody.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, with the work that I've been doing, I very much appreciate the honor of presenting on a show that is not based in a culture or identity that I share. And I really appreciate the opportunity, and I know everybody here on the panel also appreciates that opportunity. So I just wanted to say that as well.
Are we going to talk about balance?
Yes, we're already talking about balance.
Balance has nothing to do with advertising.
I was gonna say, you could just start talking about it if you want.
Okay, because that reminded me, and I'm like, okay, so you guys talked about Korra, and I don't want to be like I'm a person in the room, but I totally like Korra. And no,
I don't like her too much either.
Okay, I'm just talking not the character. No, I'm not talking about the character. character itself, I'm talking like the show. Like I didn't have the same attachment. I didn't have the same attachment to that particular show that I had with the first one, and I'm like super biased. So like that's just more me. And whenever you were talking about like how you identify with her, and I was like, well, I identify with Aang. That's why I like the first one more than the other. And then I was just like, I can watch that one over and over again. And I think you said you talked about culture, and I was like, I think why I love this show so much is because it could be any and all cultures. Yeah. Right? It's nothing specific because I've been doing Mexican. I don't know if you guys can tell or not. Yeah, my parents are from Mexico. I grew up there, whatever. And so I don't. We moved to the States here, so I don't have like that knowledge of like my actual culture. So I've been digging into it, and actually the Aztecs and the Mayans, they had the concept of like balance. That to them, health signified balance in everything, and I was like, that's why I love it so much. So like you know, there's a lot of different things that attract us to like the show, and that's why I love it so much because there's a little bit of something for everyone. Like I mean, I like Korra, the show, but I really like the comics, and I like the first Avatar cartoon. So like there's something for everyone. So, yeah.
To continue with the issue of balance, is like to go back to your question, where is that line? Balance is different for everybody because only you know your own experiences, and so you have to find it. How are you going to balance one part of your life with another? We only have 100% of ourselves to give in total. And this is something that, maybe we have so many interests and so many hobbies and we want to do all these cool things. I mean, I get this way. I have, I'm working and I'm doing podcasts and I'm doing Comicons and I'm trying to give 100% to each one. I can't. I'm really bad at math, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't add up. And so balance is something that each character in the show is finding themselves differently. Aang had to balance the way he brought up with pure pacifism with the fact that sometimes you do need to fight to defend yourself and to defend the ones you love. Katara had to find the balance between wanting to be a healer to being a fighter. Sokka balanced he just wanted to be fun-loving with also being serious. Korra had to balance her stubbornness with listening to other people's perspectives. Because, she struggled with that. And, so every character had balance in a different way. From what they thought the world was going to be or how they thought they were going to be to what they needed to be or what they actually wanted to be. So I think balance is very different. It's not all just, the elements need to be in balance, but each individual needs to be in balance with themselves. Yeah. And I think that's what Guru Patik was telling Aang, in order to fully master the Avatar state, you have to be in balance with yourself. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and there is, just FYI, for the people who weren't here, there is an Avatar The Last Airbender RPG role-playing game. Go look it up, Magpie Games, it's amazing. There is an actual mechanic in there that is called balance. And you pick two opposing values, and you try, when you act towards one or the other, you'll go either way. And the whole point is to try and keep yourself in balance, or you're going to lose the mechanics that you have from the one aspect. So it's even built into the game that they did too. So the other thing that kind of goes along with this balance thing is that a lot of the times the protagonists struggle with maintaining their values in the face of adversity. How important do you think it is to honor our values in our daily lives? Can our morals be corrupted if we let our desire for power and control take our values?
I would say that, in essence, when we lose our sense of balance, we may be susceptible, we may be open to being swayed. So, for example, the White Lotus. During Avatar The Last Airbender, very much their whole goal is to just maintain the balance of the nations, to kind of make sure that those who need protection get their protection. Fantastic. Perfectly pure White Lotus. However, just as Iroh lost his tile, so too did the White Lotus when it was time for Korra's training. get a little bit too into their own, well, way. They kept Korra locked away. They kept her from following through and gaining the kind of experience, not just of how to bend an element, but how to engage with every culture. Aang knew every culture, had friends in every nation, which is interesting for a little air nomad kid. How do you know so many people? But anyways, no, exactly. At 12? Okay, fine. So nonetheless, I gotta suspend disbelief for this animated kids show. Nonetheless, Korra did not get to see the real world. She was sheltered from it, she was cloistered from it. And so the balance between knowing what is right, knowing what to do, and not having a genuine experience in the world leads her to be very easily swayed by some rather, good meaning, or at least appearing to be good meaning, political leaders,
Honest Jones.
Exactly. When there is a very obvious, we want an obvious bad guy to beat, we want an obvious good guy to root for. And so Korra was feeling for that. She felt more for those who haven't seen this, series yet. They're open to susceptibility. So as we're going through our work, when we are finding ourselves very adamantly in one team, consider that our emotions are being swayed. There is a program in Finland in order to help their citizens avoid, to learn media literacy, how to read articles of news critically. And one of the main things that they teach is notice that your emotions are being played with. Notice when you're getting so wrapped up in your negative emotions, fear, anger, etc., you're not thinking critically anymore. And that's what happens when our amygdala gets overactivated. Our critical thinking, our prefrontal cortex, stops really activating as much, and it's hard to think so critically. That's when we are more susceptible to joining with groupthink, or joining with the momentality, or however you want to think about it, or not think.
And we saw that a lot with Zuko, right? Like, he just kept going back and forth because he was like allowing his emotions. Like, he really wanted to go back home and like be a part of the family, but it was messing with his values that he was gaining through Empire. So yeah, we saw that.
Well, I want to follow up with the thing about Zuko because it's very interesting. So,
Yes,
what is Zuko's key word? What's his catchphrase? Okay, what does honor mean to Zuko?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about core values and on morals, what does it mean to you to have honor or to be honorable? And sometimes the definitions that people are given for that, they don't actually think about it because it's like, oh, but it's obvious. Honor is honor. Honor is very relative. I'm sorry to say. What one person considers honorable, another person might not. And Zuko was so caught up in this idea of honor as obedience and, showing like I'm the right son or I'm doing what my father wanted. And a lot of children do grow up that way, but then they can see, oh, wait, you know what, I consider honor to be different now that I'm older. And so the best way to kind of live in line with our values and to not get corrupted is to always question ourselves, what does this value mean to me? What does it look like to be honorable?
And how might it be different for the person I'm talking to, across the way?
Yeah.
Like that's, if you can have a conversation, if you can actually, isn't that the most miscommunication thing, like in therapy, is this like, I'll say something and then the client's like, no, it's not that. But then we'll actually define, each of us will define what we're talking about. And like, oh no, I don't see it that way. This is how I see it. And then we adapt the definition for between me and this person, this is what this thing means, right? That's what therapy is.
Yeah.
And so like, it's a really, really good example of that.
I actually just remembered right now, in my previous job, we were doing a group and, again, all of them comes on parole. And so some of them have this frustration with their parole officer, going, oh, well, they're not helping me. Okay, why? First of all, what does help mean to you? What does it mean to receive help? What kind of help are you looking for? But also, why do you think that that's their job, to help you in that way? If you're defining, well, they need to do this for me because I need this, but you're not recognizing that they're defining their responsibility differently, then yeah, there's going to be this frustration. So for all of us, when we're going in our lives and we need something, we need to define what it means to us and what is it that we need, but how is this other person in my life who I might need it from defining that same concept? Because
And
oftentimes it's going to be different. You
And
need to
also,
find
are
that
you
balance.
living according to that value? Because oftentimes we know that's our value, but we're not doing anything in accordance to that.
Yeah.
And that's when we start feeling sadness and
Then we get
depression,
yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah, and I always, these are Charlene terms, these are not psychological terms, that's what I call this. It's like when you feel the most emotion, when you're at a 10, that is never when you should make a decision. Because you can't, like you said, somebody had literally called it hijacking.
Mm-hmm.
It's what do they call it?
Emotional
Hijacking, where you literally, you have to go through the emotional part of the brain first when you're processing anything. If the emotional part of the brain is calm, then it goes to the cognitive part of the brain. But if that emotional part of the brain is not calm, you cannot. It is physically incapable. You're physically incapable of heading to the cognition until you calm down. And that's why we work with mindfulness, which happens to be one of our questions.
Oh, my
Look at that. Am I good or what?
Surprise, surprise.
Oh my goodness. All right, hold on.
While she's looking that up, this reminds me of how Iroh would tell Zuko, remember your breath of fire, remember your breathing. I always tell my patients for cognitive behavioral therapy, we focus on the behavior of breathing first. If they can catch themselves getting not to a 10, but a 7 out of 10 in stress, even a 5, if you can catch yourself that early, and then you breathe yourself back down, then you can actually choose what it is you want to do. You can respond instead of react.
Yeah.
And like we see like, because as we were talking, I remember like in almost every single fight scene with Zuko and that Uncle Iroh was present, he was just like hanging out in the sidelines, just observing. And then when something needed to be done, he was there to do it. But he wasn't allowing his like emotions or anything to just like go out and do it, which is what we all do.
Yeah.
When we're angry, well, why don't I do it? I don't want to be afraid anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And then I do want to be friends, you know? But they just, when we're really angry, we just want that person to stop, and then we would just say things that we don't mean.
Yeah.
Well, and we see with Korra, when she's, the second someone picking a fight with her or says something she doesn't like, she gets to the 10. And she can't listen. But then later on, when she's forced to like stand aside and she's forced to like breathe, then she's recognizing the situation. And similar to what Isaac does about breathing, is I would always ask my patients, okay, you're feeling angry. Where is that in your body? Your body is telling you something. You actually feel, physiologically, emotions start as a physiological process before you can even label it as that emotion. So if you can notice, oh, my chest is getting tight. Maybe even before you've said anxiety or stress, but you notice that your chest is tight, okay, can I just take a breath there? And then you're able to handle the thing that you need to handle. Your body is telling you what it needs in the moment, and that's the core of mindfulness, which is just being present in the moment, noticing your internal experience as well as the external.
I rewatched Korra specifically for this. You know, I rewatch Avatar too.
Yeah.
I just rewatch that all the
whole
time.
thing, I just want to say.
But the moment she goes and visits Zahir after their battle, because she can't move past what had happened because of her trauma, she was letting her emotions get the best of her, so she couldn't break past that point, right? And it's the weirdest scene that you have the guy that did the thing to you being the therapist, basically, but that's what it was happening. He was coaching her through mindfulness, through trauma work, to, you know, don't fight it. You have to go through it. You can't go around it. It's with that song, I don't know if anybody has kids, but you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you can't go around it, you gotta go through it, right? And it's uncomfortable and it sucks. And it's hard. But Zahir in that moment was coaching her through that trauma. And then she could get into the spirit world again. And it's like that's exactly what needs to happen with mindfulness and trauma work, which is something I work a lot with as well.
We saw it with Iroh in season 2 when she was in the spirit world and she's getting angry. So all the spirits are being affected by her and they're turning into the dark spirits.
Yeah.
And I was saying is when you're angry, then the world around you is angry. And when you're calm, then you can impart that calmness in the world around you. And Korra was forced to, each moment when she noticed she was getting angry because of the dark spirits, she literally stopped and took a breath and calmed down, and then the spirits were able to calm down. Because it's true, when we are in heightened emotions, there's such a thing as empathic contagion, which is when one person has heightened emotions, the next person next to them is going to start feeling heightened emotions, and so on and so forth, until we get to mom mentality. And so Korra was having to stop it in the moment. Oh crap. Oh my goodness, I said that word. Bleep. I'm just make sure there's no kids in here. I'm getting angry, now the spirits are upset and they're hurting. I need to calm down, because I don't want the spirits to be hurting. I don't want to hurt other people.
Honestly, I think for me as a kid, watching the series, Uncle Iroh was probably the first, on TV example of, healthy we should have been, but we didn't.
You're not that old. I'm
Yeah,
32 and I'm
I'm
not.
But that was a major theme for Iroh, right? He had the toxic masculinity at the beginning and then switched to it. What do you all have to say about that?
In particular, part of his approach to showing how a genuine and strong individual, and in his case is the masculine, for he is masculine, but these qualities are not inherent just to masculinity. You can have positive or healthy masculinity, you can have positive and healthy femininity. So Iroh very much embodies the integrity component. He has a goal, he cares about Zuko. Just when Zuko comes to him and he's like, I'm so upset at myself. Able to pass on this healthy approach to his nephew, that he can break this, interfamilial chain of violence and anger. And similarly, there are these other figures that are able to maintain similar methods. So calmness, or neutral Jane, as King Bumi shows us. The ability to maintain a patience of what's going on, wait for the right moment, and then act. Respond in that particular.
He is the most chaotic, neutral character. And I use that as an example all the time.
But he's very healthy about it.
Yeah, he is.
And that's how you get to be king. Well, that and tremendous earthbending power. But even without that, the man can wear the most amazing, just ridiculous clothes.
Yeah.
Probably no one's gonna mess with him because he could completely flatten him.
Yeah.
But also he rocks it because he's confident in himself.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
well grounded.
Again, this is one of the things I really like about Avatar, because we are shown several different ways that it can happen, right? It's not just Uncle Iroh, we see it in different characters. So I was thinking about, help me out here, because I'm horrible with names. What's the sword master? What's his name?
Piandao.
Yeah, he was also super awesome. He was also very centered, very calm.
Basically, anyone in the White Lotus OG crew.
Yeah.
That's it. Jong Jong showed an example of someone moving towards healthy masculinity. He was dealing with a lot of trauma. He had seen war. Granted, so did Iroh, but he saw it as a foot soldier, not as a general. It's a different kind of a hell you go through. Firebending, pun not included. So he initially was very caustic to Aang and was very strict and hard. However, after recognizing this was not his position, I'm not the teacher here. I'm not in the right position. I need to step out. So that's conflict avoidance. That's the ability to notice that I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm not the right person for this job. It's time for me to bow out. He was correct.
Well, and one thing is obviously with the question about healthy masculinity, but a lot of times when people talk about that, it's about emotional expression. And we see that a lot. Zuko did not want to express his emotions other than anger because Western society tells men that's the only emotion. The only emotions men are allowed to express is anger, hungry, and horny.
And those are the safe ones.
Those are the ones that are masculine. But I actually think it's really interesting is in the show we see a lot of female identifying characters who don't feel comfortable expressing emotions, even though that's what's expected for female identifying individuals. Toph did not feel comfortable sharing her emotions and being heartfelt.
And she never changed.
She never,
either.
but yet she was still healthy about it because she's like, you know what? She was still able to be honest about herself.
Yeah.
She wasn't trying to repress the
But
emotions.
she had her own way of showing like that she cared about.
And she did it more through actions than through words.
Yeah.
She could notice, hey, you know what? Okay, you're angry, you're suffering. I can't say anything, but okay, I'm just gonna make this earth tent so at least you have somewhere to sleep. Because when they were in the Great Divide, and there's two warring sides. She couldn't, verbalize anything to help them, to feel calm, but she made them shelter. That's her expressing how she feels and what she wants through her actions. So there's, the positive, healthy, emotional expression for both masculine identifying characters and female identifying characters is just different ways of expressing that, but in a healthy way, so you're not repressing it, you're not shoving it down, or judging yourself for having them.
And that's what Korra did through the whole show.
She was not very healthy about that.
No. So I feel that's why I love her to death, because she had just had so much growth. I love seeing the growth of the character. But yeah, Toph, especially in Korra, when she's talking to her daughters, there's a lot of animosity there. But she is able to say, I know I didn't treat you the best, I wasn't the best mother, but I hope you can forgive me and let's, repair and move on. So, she can be honest, can be emotional, I guess. But it's in her, like you said, in her own way.
Yeah, and again, like that growth is expressed when she is a lot older too, which gives us a hint that it can happen. Like you can get better or change no matter what age you are.
Oh yeah, that saying an old dog can't learn new tricks is false.
Or the joke, how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? One, but the light bulb has to want to change.
Because there's something called neuroplasticity. Like your brain will literally kill off the stuff you don't use and recreate the stuff you are using. So when you're practicing mindfulness, when you're practicing all of these new skills, which is why I love doing the D&D therapy, because you're still practicing the skills just as a character, you're building a new highway. You're building a new neurological highway that will be stronger eventually than the one you had previously, and that one will die off. That's neuroplasticity. You can learn. I don't care how old you are to do it.
Yeah.
And the discipline to keep on doing it
Yes.
again and again.
Yes.
The neurons themselves actually grow more branches and they fire faster every time you use them. That's why we become black belts at kicking our own butts, because we've been thinking those negative thoughts. We've been essentially cultivating that negative avatar state. So,
The dark avatar.
Exactly.
So I wanted to open it up. I know we took a few questions in between, but I wanted to open it up for questions from anybody else. If not, I have some more questions. Yes.
Which nation would you guys choose and why?
Yeah, exactly. What is it?
I already knew the answer.
Be the leaf, Isaac. So growing up, when I first started watching the show, I really identified with the Water Tribe and their like philosophy. Actually, now that I'm older, I find myself feeling more connected to mentalities. So mud. You know? The foggy swamp. I'm a foggy swamp. You know?
I would be an earthbender all the way because you get to smash things, and again, I'm pretty sure I'm just Korra, just in general. I get to smash things and all that fun stuff. Metal bending. Who wouldn't want to do metal bending? But yeah, that would.
I would just be the avatar, so I can be a part of all.
There you go.
I was like trying to decide. I was like, oh no, like I really like water. Air is so cool too, and like I don't know, Earth is awesome. But like fire has like really cool outfits. So just avatar, just all of them.
And lightning.
So what you're essentially pointing out is what Iroh figured out, which is that you can learn something from every culture.
Yeah.
So engage in yours, definitely glean everything you can from it, and then go and learn from everyone else.
Yeah.
In fact, in multiple religious texts, if you look hard enough, there are sections saying, go to the other people, see how they do, take what works, and bring it back to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, that said, be like water, my friends. Water in the world, it can crash. You put it in a cup, it fills the cup. You put it in a jug, it fills the jug. Be like water.
Yeah, but I can smash that cup.
Water can also smash cups. So could air. If it
Fast.
blows hard enough.
Erosion doesn't count. Any
The
other?
Grand Canyon does differ.
Well, I want to hear from you though. Like, how many of you would choose Earth? Okay, if you.
Water? Oh, that's a lot.
Oh.
Okay. Air. Fire.
Definitely.
So a lot of waters and like a lot of earths and then like a little, like pretty much a tie between air and fire.
There's
I
like
think.
no earths, what are you talking about?
I'm counting myself in this. I counted myself twice.
I count
Counting us, I'm biased. But okay. Any other questions? Yes.
So what can we do to help out the Zuko's in our lives?
Without getting burned.
Ah!
Make them tea.
Good tea. Not hot sauce.
Yeah.
At least choose. Well, I think for me, when I'm interacting with people that are very hot-headed, very stuck in that negative mindset, you want to give them the space and you want to validate it. Because a lot of times when people in this space, they're trying to justify that they didn't have space. Because a lot of them, how many times have people told you, just calm down? Is that helpful?
No.
Don't be sad. Don't be
Don't be
anxious.
sad, don't be angry. Okay, you're angry. Alright, what are we angry about? Like, let's just be angry in this moment. And then when that passes for that moment, then we can kind of work from there to solve the problem.
Listen. Uncle Korra is my favorite for a reason. Alright? But he basically said it, right? He said like, I'm not gonna tell him what to do, but if he needs me, I'm gonna be there. And a lot of the times what Zuko-esque people need is someone to be there for them. Because people tend to leave if you are too difficult, right? If you are just angry all the time, I want to hang out with you. But if you are that constant for them, eventually they're gonna get to a spot where they're gonna reach out and they're gonna be like, hey, this is what I need, or can you help me?
Yeah.
Or like you can just every now and then throw out like, let's go have some tea, let's relax, let's do this, together.
But I think Uncle Iroh had very good, healthy boundaries.
Yes.
He knew when to step back. He knew when it was time to say, that's not okay. Yeah, so like, if you're working with someone who's hot-headed with you, yes, be there for them, right? All those things. If they're directing it towards you, that at that point, it doesn't have to be forever, just might be for the 2 minutes that they're angry, give them their space. give them some time, to calm themselves down and then come back and support them, right? Like, you don't have to solve all of the problems immediately. People are uncomfortable with anger, so we try and solve it immediately, right? And it's like, no, let people feel it. And when you feel it, you can actually you gotta go through it. And then at the end, when you calm down, you can figure out what happened, why it happened, why you were so angry, and so that we can learn for next time, how do we prepare for when this thing happens again, right?
Just on the thing of like how do we deal with the Zuko's in our life, I think one of the crucial things you said before about the light bulb has to want to change. And I think one of the really key things you see with Uncle Iroh is that he's not someone who is constantly lecturing Zuko about this is how you should be, this is what you should do. He's there to hold a mirror up to Zuko when Zuko reaches those places, his own situation, for Uncle Iroh to say, like, yeah, you should be uncomfortable situations. He's just there to show and to be there and holds those boundaries. But he doesn't lecture Zuko or tell him, or even give him advice or how to be until Zuko is in the position where he's asking for that.
Right.
And then he has someone who he knows he can trust to go to and say, I'm now uncomfortable with where I am and who I am. Help me be better. And he knows that Uncle Iroh is in that place for him. And so I think for the Zuko's in our life, it's really easy to think like, all right, how can I fix them?
Yeah.
How can I make them change? And you can't do that. What you can do is be a safe person, be someone who, when they do misbehave, when they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing, that you're willing to hold up that mirror and say, all right, look, you need to understand what you're doing and what those consequences are. See that, you're hurting, but you don't try and step in and ask them until and unless they come to you as that safe person and ask for that.
Yeah, themselves, right? Am I trying to help them or am I trying to help myself? Because we do feel uncomfortable with, especially when a loved one is going through something we want to help. But sometimes that person doesn't help right away, but we want to feel better ourselves. So we're like, what can I do something? I'm gonna do it better.
Yeah. All right, so I just want to go down the line. We got to go down the line. Where are we from again? I'm Charlene McPherson from Nat 20 Therapy. You can find me everywhere on the internet.
Ben and my Hero Therapy podcast, Mental Health Quest podcast.
Elizabeth, Psychology for Geeks, everywhere on social media. And also, I forgot to say that I have a podcast where I talk about Avatar The Last on YouTube.
And I'm what's the name of your podcast?
A pinch of everything, but you can find it through Psychology for Geeks.
And I'm Dr. Isaac Tights. You can find me on all the socials and my website, All Mind Health. Leaving a few brains and business cards up here, squishy brains, not real ones. But you can also come over to the next room where we're going to be talking about Star Wars and the psychology of the way. So we'll see you there.
Yes.